So, colleagues, good afternoon. My next presentation is going to be about the technical aspects of our products. Let me just put on my presentation first. So, server installation, agent installation, and server maintenance. That's what I'm going to talk about. For those of you that didn't see the first presentation, just a few words about the Staffcop company. We've been working for more than 10 years on applications related to information security. We're based in Novosibirsk, and our mission is to create affordable solution for information security. What do? We measure personnel efficiency, information security, incident investigation, remote administration, and work time monitoring. Can you hear me well? Before I continue the presentation, if you are in the chat, could you please let me know if everything is okay? This is going to be a more interactive presentation. I would like to know your reactions. And I would also like to know if there are any clients among those who are listening online. If you have ever used our products, please react in the chat. For example, you can just write me one, or you can ask questions as well. I hope there will be some reactions. While you are trying to put pluses or ones in the chat, let's move on. A few words about the infrastructure. I will repeat this again. We use a client-server architecture. The job of the server is to collect data and somehow keep it, categorize it, and provide access to system administrator to be able to work with that data. And we also use agents. Agents are installed on computers, and they follow instructions provided by servers. So this is what we're going to talk about. How do we install the server? The server works on Ubuntu. We use Postgres database, Nginx server. Everything is free. You don't need to spend any additional money on that. Our server is installed as one single ISO file. It includes Ubuntu 16 or 18, Postgres, and all the necessary dependencies. You just fire up a virtual machine. You include a hypervisor. You can just put it on any modern computer, or you can use a hypervisor that will ensure the monitoring of thousands of your personnel. The resource requirements are listed on our website, but just in a nutshell, you can see the screenshot of one of such machine. You just need 2 cores, 2 gigs, and 50 gigs on your drive. So you just mount the ISO, you start it. It takes me about 20 minutes. Regarding the agents, if you remember my previous presentation, but if you didn't see it, let me just quickly remind you, just so we're on the same page. Our agents ensure the total monitoring, total surveillance of what the staff do. Just put 2 in the chat if you have seen my first presentation. So our agent collects different data. It connects to the HTTPS, all the other drivers as necessary. In terms of antiviruses, these actions are potentially harmful. So first of all, you need to turn off the antivirus. Then you need to install the agent, and then you need to configure the machine. There are very different ways to install the agent. There are more than 10 options, 10 ways to do this. But you can just click through the standard way. You can also use the MSI installation package. You can download it, or you can use a separate utility that will enable you to go through all the necessary steps needed to install this server. Or you can scan the network through the web interface, or you can even make a self-unpacking archive. And the most straightforward way is to use a utility, depending on your situation. So you install the agent, you set up the web interface. And one more question, since we have time, let me just quickly tell you about the relevance of monitoring the personnel. And then I will talk to you about how to set things up. So I'm not advising you to what to do and what not to do. I'm just going to tell you what our clients experienced and the questions that they raised and the assistance that they asked us for. So all of these questions are kind of relevant. I'm not trying to preach to you, but just giving you real examples. The first example is remote work, transition to remote work. So first is RDP to workstation. In terms of information security, that's a very challenging thing. What changes for the agent? Nothing. So agent worked on the computer, and it continues to work on the computer. You don't need to reconfigure anything. So the server continues to work with the same network. The same thing. For example, you have an organization that has some free resources, system administrators. In those organizations, you can install a terminal server that will be doing the main work. So you provide access, and you can get some external access. You can ensure control on the terminal center. So very simply, both the terminal server and the agent for the computer is the same thing. But on the terminal server, you have more file operations and more users, therefore more load. But conceptually, it's the same thing. You just set up the configuration. You just do it. Just follow the instruction, and it may take several talk to explain to you, but this is very configurable and flexible. And the third option, for example, you have a working notebook for people to be able to work from home plus VPN. That's a very popular option, and we used this ourselves. So what are the peculiarities of setting up an agent? The agent can transmit data from the work machine, from the workstation to the server. This is accomplished through a VPN tunnel. The only technical thing here is that there shouldn't be, we need to make sure that no HTTP certificate is replaced or spoofed so that no data is compromised. Usually there's no problem with that. Everything works without a hitch on a Cisco hardware. So we do that. We set up a VPN. The agent is up and running. The only thing is that if VPN is not, if there's no VPN, no data is transferred. But the server constantly polls whether the workstation is connected through VPN, and it happens regularly. And the fourth option, there's no VPN. For example, an admin cannot set up a VPN, or there is no software for this. Okay, so what happens if we send our employees to work from home? We just give them their notebooks and tell them to go home and work. The agent should be able to transfer data to the server. So what do we do? How do we make this? We use port forwarding. We have some whitelisted addresses. For example, in the internal network, it's 443, and let's say it's 4,443 at home, and then we route this traffic, and the data is transferred as necessary. So we can use an alternative server to be able to transfer all the data. And on the router, we set up port forwarding. And the next option, option 5, is when we only have VPN. and home hardware is used. So the option is just VPN. But the last option is when nothing is available. When we had one client when there was nothing of the above. They said we can't use a VPN because we are in a closed loop. The only option is to play open. I gave you an example during my presentation that if there's no other option, you have to explain to the employees that they have to somehow make reports themselves. You can agree with the employee, your employee, that okay, we have a contract of hardware rental, and that configuration requires some sort of settings, and then data is transferred at specified times. For example, once a month. That's also a possibility. What else? We have an agent installed. Shall I go on? Okay, our agent is installed. How do we maintain the server and how the architecture looks like? Here are some of the bullet points, some of the key points. Data structure. In other words, what is kept on the server. This is our server. I'm going to show you how this whole thing looks as I go along. Let's go to the terminal. So there's two types of data. The first is what's kept in Postgres database, the events, what happened when and where. And the second type is shadow copies, logs, video files, audio files, files. So the first type is kept in Postgres. The other is just kept in some folder on the file system. And all of these two types require different approaches to data administration. So for the accumulated files, we have a built-in policy. When the disk is 90% full, rotation starts. Old data will be overwritten, new will be kept. You can also launch a special maintenance script. Data is backed up every single day, and only the operating system knows what data is what, because everything is hashed. So when the disk is 90% full, rotation starts. The database is fully automatic. Starting from version 4.5, data is sharded. If you know what this is, what this technology means, you're probably familiar with this. So using sharding, you can remove unnecessary data. For example, you can keep 6 months worth of data and then remove it, or you can launch a script in whose parameters you specify what needs to be done. So data is kind of more fussy, so we don't use any automatic scripts for that. Sometimes a lot of data is collected, and sometimes people realize that they need to kind of increase the space for storing data. We have a special chapter in the instruction set about this. And if you use a hypervisor or a virtual machine, you just enter the settings and increase the size. And you can easily do this. Sometimes it is necessary. It may become necessary if just rotation is not sufficient, or if regionally you just allocated only 20 gigabytes of disk space. This may turn out to be insufficient. Sometimes people ask me, how much data one agent generates? Does one agent generate? That's a very difficult question, because you have to look at the organization or what it does. On average, one agent generates 3.5 gigs of data per month. But it depends. Again, this number I gave you is average. As an option, if you monitor more than 50 machines, you can make a difference between the database and other data. You can keep files on a slow and cheap HDD storage system because it's cheaper and you don't really care about the speed, but the database is kept on an SSD disk. Why is sometimes obviously not sufficient? Sometimes you can even kind of make an experiment. You can, on purpose, just allocate too little space and achieve a situation when there is no space left, and then see whether or not this cleaning script works. If it doesn't, then the database stops working, and the files stop rotating. And of course, you can also use some remote administration to clean up the data. What about the troubleshooting? How do we make our lives simpler using the servers? Well, first of all, you need to maintain your database. You need to regularly inspect data. Very often, it so happens that, for example, Nextcloud is installed, and it creates a lot of network events. They don't pose any information security risks, but they generate a lot of events, and they need to be kind of turned off, not to overload the system. I've seen in one case, Scoot was installed on one system, and it pulled its local database several times a second, and it generated lots of file operations. So you have to kind of block this. In another client, we found that there was a Trojan in the system, some strange Trojan. So it was kind of trying to do something, and then it went down, and then it kind of generated a lot of events, and the antivirus didn't find anything wrong with that. But then we looked closer at that, and we were able to identify the problem. So this was a purely IT problem. We were able to fix it, but there were lots of unwanted events. So this is just another example of how you can kind of fill the database too fast. Also, you need to take a look at the configuration, what kind of data, what kind of events are logged by the agent, so that you don't collect unwanted, unnecessary data. Another popular quote-unquote question is when the agent does not generate any data at all. So first of all, you need to make sure that the agent is actually installed on the system, that it's not blocked by the antivirus, that it works. And the second thing that you need to check is whether or not the agent can reach the server. For example, the routing is not set up correctly. For example, some proxy server does not allow for the traffic to proceed normally. So you need to kind of rule out all of these potential issues. And you can also go to our help section. You can ask for help, so our support, to kind of troubleshoot these situations. If the agent can reach the server, but there is still no data, you need to check whether or not the license is valid. For example, if there is no valid license, then no data will be logged on the server from the agent. Going forward, there may be other issues as well, but you need to talk to the tech support about this. Okay, I still have a little bit more time. Updates and backups. Of course, we regularly collect stability information from our clients and feedbacks. We also collect feature requests, and we issue 2 global updates a year. Just recently, we released a lot of cool features. Go to our YouTube channel. Just recently, I conducted a webinar explaining the new features that we just recently rolled out. We collect this data, and we release these updates twice a year. So, and we also do some minor updates that happen that come out as soon as necessary. For example, we may identify a bug, we fix it, we release an update. And we also try to keep abreast of the changes of dependencies. So we may also release new features. Sometimes they take less time, sometimes they take more time. Minor updates. When it comes to minor updates, you just do sudo upgrade. For global updates, of course, you have to first back up the entire server. And of course, before you do any kind of global update, you have to clean up your system, remove unnecessary data, and you need to make sure that at least half of your database storage is free. So if you have 300 gigs for the database, you need to have at least 150 gigs free on the database storage system. If you were a client, for example, and you were running under 4.5, the version 4.5, and you want to transition to 4.8, we recommend you to migrate. But we encourage you to contact our support team so that it can walk you through this process so that it's seamless and pain-free. What else? What other interesting things do we have here? I'd like to also focus on the deployment. Very simply. First of all, you need to explain to your employees what's personal, what's work-related. They need to be very clear about what's personal and not personal. We believe that there has to be a kind of an addendum to the employment contract. And this has to kind of stipulate what it means personal and what it means work-related. And there have to be work instructions. Work instructions stipulate that the employee must deliver a certain amount of work within the specified scope. And also, the employer must oversee how its property that is entrusted to the employee is used, how it's utilized. So, and we also recommend that there should be an order issued in the company about automated surveillance. There may be also other supporting documents. Regarding remote work, I would like to add a few words about remote work, a few points about remote work, because this is not office. I recommend that there should be a special kind of order in the company. And also, last but not least, the Transfer Act, listing what kind of equipment, what kind of hardware is given to the employee before they go to work from their homes. And a few other aspects related to the deployment, to all the issues deployment related. I'm going to skip through that because I talked about this in detail in my first presentation. These are the prices for our products. For more information, you can always go to our sales department. If you have any additional questions related to the subject matter of my presentation, please ask them. We have very interesting cases for you. And by the way, I would also be very willing to listen to your stories, to your testimonials. This concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to continue this discussion in the web chat, to hear your feedbacks, to hear your requests.